Tonight, a ruling by a Canadian court acknowledges bias against a Muslim organization. And another Sikh student targeted in British Columbia. We cover stories about the decline of Palestinian Authority, new measures by Liberals to tackle the housing crisis, and boycotting Meta on the International Day of Democracy. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Zahra Syed. An Ontario Superior Court has rejected a Muslim charity's request to halt a Canada Revenue Agency audit. The news comes after Muslim Association of Canada filed a lawsuit against the CRA. In its court submission, the charity says the lengthy audit violates the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom and infringes on its rights for equality and freedom of religion. Justice Marcus Conan has expressed sympathy for some of the charity's arguments. Conan says, however, the court should not interfere in an ongoing governmental process. He says the CRA's review does not breach the charter. The charity is serving over 150,000 Canadians annually through various community initiatives. Although the charity appreciates the court's acknowledgement of bias, it is considering an appeal against the decision. A senior representative from the charity says that the court's decision does not promptly address alleged violations. A 2021 report by the International Civil Liberties Group Monitoring Group criticizes the CRA's review and analysis division for carrying out targeted audits without adequate accountability. In response to the court, the CRA had expressed concerns about the charity's involvement with terrorist organizations. The court terms these concerns as bias. A Sikh student has been attacked on a transit bus in Kelowna, British Columbia. The police say earlier this week, the 17-year-old student was attacked with either bear or pepper spray by another teenager. They say the suspect has been identified. The World Sikh Organization condemns the attack. In a statement, the organization says the victim is not sure why he was targeted. The organization says the boy was threatened with a lighter by two individuals. When the boy turned away, the perpetrators kicked and punched him in front of the bus driver. Then the driver asked the victim and the suspects to get off the bus. The organization says the victim is a newcomer to Canada and is afraid to leave his house. The organization is also criticizing the bus driver's response by asking the victim to exit the bus along with the suspects. Kelowna City Councillor Mohini Singh is calling the attack, quote, totally unacceptable. She says the attack has sent shockwaves through the community. This is the second attack on a Sikh student in Kelowna this year. In March, international student Gagandeep Singh was also attacked while leaving a transit bus. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, is facing widespread condemnation for making controversial remarks about the Holocaust in a televised speech to his party. The backlash has shed light on his deep unpopularity among Palestinians and a growing dissatisfaction with his rule. A poll last year by Palestinian Center for Policy and Research shows about 73% of Palestinians wanting him to step down. The Palestinian Authority, established as part of the Oslo Agreements, was meant to be an interim government to administer territories occupied by Israel. However, as Palestinians marked the 30th anniversary of Oslo Accords 2 days ago, there is little doubt that the peace initiative has collapsed. Israel continues to expand settlements in the West Bank, undermining the Palestinian Authority's legitimacy. Abbas's authoritarian rule, his lack of elections, and dissolved parliament have left Palestinians questioning the Palestinian Authority's future. There is no clear succession plan for the 87-year-old leader. The Palestinian Authority's inability to protect Palestinians from violence by Israeli forces and settlers have deepened its delegitimization. Despite being a crucial economic provider, the Palestinian Authority's economic benefits are subject to Israel's decisions. This makes many Palestinians believe that Palestinian Authority is an enabler of their oppression. The long-formed interim government has focused on international forums and mechanisms which have garnered global solidarity, but it has limited the impact on Palestinians' daily lives. With the rise of Israel's most extremist government, many Palestinians are considering a future beyond Abbas and the Oslo framework. Younger generations are advocating for different goals, including challenging the apartheid and racial discrimination and reevaluating the one-state solution. Russian President Vladimir Putin has dismissed the rumors suggesting that North Korea plans to deploy its soldiers to participate in Russia's operation in Ukraine. During a news conference, Putin stated that Russia has a sufficient number of its own combatants and does not need to invite people from outside. Putin says 300,000 people have signed up to volunteer in the war. Putin says that the Western assessments that the North Korean leader's visit to Russia could increase tensions in the region and are, quote, nonsense. Putin says Russia will not violate any law, but look for opportunities to develop relations with North Korea. Putin has also criticized the U.S. for delivering cluster bombs to Ukraine, stating that it reflects Washington's belief in its exceptionalism. He says that the U.S. does not hesitate to commit actions that it considers to be crimes for the rest of the world. For more on charges against Hunter Biden, stay tuned. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has unveiled new measures to combat rising housing and food prices. In a meeting on Wednesday in London, Ontario, Trudeau announced the elimination of the goods and services tax on the construction of new rental housing. The federal government has called on major grocers to stabilize food prices by Thanksgiving. Failure to do so will result in fines and taxes. The government also plans to introduce legislation that would empower the Competition Bureau to oversee business mergers. A day earlier, the government announced its intention to work with the Canadian cities to accelerate the construction of new housing. The New Democratic Party welcomes the elimination of GST on new rental housing. It is, however, criticizing delay in implementation. Trudeau says London has become the first city in Canada to reach a deal with the government under its Housing Acceleration Fund. Under the agreement, the City of London will receive $74 million in exchange for giving the government the authority to change local zoning regulations to encourage the construction of rentals. The agreement is expected to result in the creation of 2,000 housing units within 3 years. Hungary's foreign minister is accusing Swedish politicians of making, quote, unfair and unjust comments about the state of democracy in his country. He says Sweden's approach is not helpful for the ratification process of Sweden's application for NATO. In a letter to his Swedish counterpart, the Hungarian minister has described Swedish politicians' remarks about his country as biased and negative. The Hungarian minister accuses Swedish politicians of spreading fake news by claiming that the democracy in Hungary has been on the decline in recent years. He has told his counterpart that while Swedish politicians are urging Hungary to ratify Sweden's accession to NATO, they continue to target Hungary. Sweden applied for membership in NATO along with Finland shortly after Russia launched its war against Ukraine in February of last year. The son of President Joe Biden has been criminally charged with 3 counts of lying on gun purchase forms. Hunter Biden's charges stem from a 2018 incident in which he allegedly denied using narcotics while purchasing a Colt Cobra special revolver. At the time of purchase, Junior Biden was a heavy user of crack cocaine. Lying on such forms or possessing a firearm as a drug user violates the U.S. federal law. A settlement had previously been proposed to drop Junior Biden's charges. The proposed settlement included admission by Junior Biden to illegally possess firearms. He would have also undergone drug treatment with a possibility of a prison sentence. However, the proposal was dissolved after a U.S. District Court judge expressed his reservations. If found guilty, Hunter Biden faces up to 20 years in prison. Junior Biden's attorney contends that the charges reflect undue political influence and that Hunter Biden did not pose a threat to public safety. Junior Biden's charges come amid political tensions as President Joe Biden seeks re-election. The indictment marks the first time the child of a sitting president has been criminally prosecuted. Today is the International Day of Democracy. On this day, journalists and public relations groups in Quebec, Canada, are calling for a one-day boycott of Meta-owned social media platforms. The boycott is in protest to Meta's news-sharing ban in Canada. The protest is named Day Without Meta. It aims to reflect that Quebec stands with its journalists, refusing to be intimidated. Meta has implemented a news blackout in Canada since the start of August. The blackout is a retaliation to Canada's new law requiring compensation to media outlets for content shared on Meta's platforms. The law's implementation comes as the Canadian media industry faces significant job losses, prompting the government to make social media giants contribute fairly. Both Meta and Google have opposed the legislation. Meta has maintained its news blackout even during a wildfire crisis when Canadians needed reliable information. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has criticized Meta's profit-focused behavior, calling it, quote, inconceivable. The Canadian Association of Journalists, Municipalities, and Chambers of Commerce in Quebec are backing the Day Without Meta boycott. They urge Canadians to avoid posting on Facebook and Instagram and support local media outlets instead. Thank you for watching. Our news is produced by Muslim Network TV, which is a not-for-profit organization. We need your support for donations. Please scan the QR code on our broadcast or visit muslimnetwork.tv to donate now, so we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.